What we're talking about is having the skills and the mindsets, the tools, the intuition to be able to handle whatever's going on in whatever generation you're raising your kids in.
Gentle parenting is equal to what we call permissive parenting.
You and I, and in our family, man, we are adamant about respect.
When is permissive good and when is permissive not a good approach?
Like, you cannot spoil a baby.
We literally pass it on because emotions are contagious.
I'm going to be a kind but firm person. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Extraordinary Family Life Podcast. We're your hosts, Greg and Rachel Dennings. Super crazy excited. Okay, about a lot of things. We've already talked about this, so if you've heard some episodes, but Rachel and I are working on, we've created and we're still adding to what we hope becomes the best parenting course on the planet. Exactly. We want to make this thing just absolutely world class, and we're already doing it. We're just going to keep adding to it. And I was thinking this morning, because we got some exciting news from our oldest daughter. So at this point, right, we've been through every stage of parenting, from pregnancy and birth, toddlers, all the way up through teens, young adults, married, and then the stage where you help your kids have kids, right? And
that's where we're going next.
That's where we're going next. Yeah. And we're right on the verge of that awesome sauce. So it's like we've done all the stages and
for, I guess, having mature, older adult children.
Right. So we'll keep doing that. And that's kind of the grandparent phase too, where now you're still a parent and a grandparent, but those other phases we've done and with phenomenal results. Our kids are amazing. We have a great relationship with them. They have a great relationship with each other.
Perfect or without mistakes or without challenges. But the point is, the emphasis for me is that we have, and this is the way I always think about it for myself, because it's not about being a perfect parent, but it is about having the tools to kind of know what to do when things come up. Because things come, like, you're going to have challenges raising children. They're going to face challenges. You're going to be dealing with emotions and mistakes and making decisions. Like, all of these things are going to happen. But for me, the comfort is having the tools to be like, okay, we can work through this. We can handle this. We can deal with this.
Exactly.
We can make it through this. That to me is what it's about, rather than being crushed by whatever life throws at you.
And crushed by it because you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I was actually writing about this yesterday. It's like one of the most frustrating things in life is trying things that don't work and keep trying it and just giving all your effort and energy and everything, and it doesn't work. And you don't get the results you want, and you're just like, what is going on? And it's most often just the lack of a tool or a strategy that then makes it so much easier. And you're just like, man, it's so easy with the right tool. And I think everyone's experienced that when you need to hammer something in and all you have is a screwdriver or a rock or something. Like, oh, this is so infuriating.
It's like you can do it, but it's more difficult.
Right. You're trying to build something beautiful and all you have is a hammer and some old rusty nails. You're like, man, I could sure go for a nail gun right now with an air compressor and all this great stuff, right?
So the right tools make a difference and can vastly simplify things, just like a power tool can make a job easier. But sometimes I'm concerned that we still emphasize the tools too much, which is why in some ways I think I'm right. I'm literally in the process of writing a book called Authentic Parenting, because the other aspect of it that maybe we don't touch on enough, we don't talk about enough, is the whole intuitive side of that. The whole awareness piece. Because there's one thing to have the right tools, but the other thing is to know when and where and how to use them.
And which one to use.
Use.
Because you might pull out a sledgehammer when all you needed was a little chisel, teeny little chisel.
So, and for me, that's the intuitive side of it. That's the awareness. That's the soul part of it.
Well, that's the refined art of it and the finesse of it.
And so I guess I'm bringing it up now because I want to emphasize, especially as we go through this episode, but, in all of our episodes and everything we're teaching in our coaching, like I've been trying more to emphasize it, that it's not just about the tools. Yes, the tools are important and they can make your job so much easier. But having that intuition is even more important. In fact, if there was one thing you could pick, I would pick the intuition, because with intuition, you're going to have more power to know what to do than if you have all the tools but no intuition, right? Because you'll just be still probably using the wrong tool at the wrong time.
I agree with you. It's so critical. But like I have this big like flashing warning sign in my head because people do horrendous things.
In the name of intuition?
Yes. And they're like, I just got this intuition. I felt like this is what I should do. And so they're misinformed. And intuition often comes after information and inspiration. And
so it has to be an educated intuition.
Yes, exactly. It has to be very educated. And it has to know, like as an individual, you have to know what tools are even available. Yeah. If I have 3 tools and I'm living like a caveman and I'm like, I've got some intuition here, I'm going to use the big rock. And it's like, bro, like, do you even know that all of these other options are available? Do you even have an understanding of the parenting styles? Do you have a big picture vision of what you want from your kids? Because if I have no big vision of how I want my kids to turn out, I'm only acting in the moment and my intuition tells me to do this. But like the distance of my farsighted thinking is only this weekend or getting through this stage with these kids, then I'm going to have, quote, intuition that's wrong. I'm misguided because all I'm trying to do is manage symptoms instead of get the end result that I want. So yes, you're right. Intuition matters so much, but people get so misguided thinking it's intuition because their intuition is often uninformed or coming from some negative past experience. They have some trauma they haven't resolved, and their intuition, quote, intuition is screaming, do the opposite. Or they're still so triggered by things that the emotion is the driving force. And they feel like it's intuition.
Yeah, you are so right there. And I feel that it is necessary to have an expanded perspective, I guess, or framework in order to have properly functioning intuition. So while you're speaking, like all these thoughts and images are going through my mind. One of them that came up is the labyrinth. And Greg and I have talked about it before. The specific labyrinth that we always think of is actually on the floor of a cathedral in Chartreuse, France. And it's a labyrinth that in order to get to the middle, you have to walk every part of it, every aspect of it, north, south, east, west. You have to walk all of it to get to the center. That to me is at least my idealized vision of intuition.
Please put that in your book.
Yes, absolutely.
Like that application specifically, intuition is found at the center of the labyrinth. And you're trying along the way, but you get really good and accurate intuition once you've walked the whole labyrinth. Yeah. You've been to the far left and to the far right and to the far north and the far south. And you've seen the dips and the ups and the downs and the darkness and the light and all of the experiences of life. Then in the middle, you're like, okay, the accuracy and the beauty of intuition is so powerful.
Right. But the thing that came to my mind also while you were speaking is because you said that, you could have some past trauma from your childhood and your quote unquote intuition tells you to do the opposite from what happened to you. And what I thought was like, well, in some ways that is true. That is your intuition, because I've learned from experience that if your intuition tells you to do the opposite, that can start you on a path on the labyrinth that takes you ultimately to the center. But where people get stuck is, and we've seen this time and time again, and this happens with diet, it happens with religion, it happens with basically everything. They start at one place and their intuition tells them to go to the opposite, but then they stay there forever. They never change. They never move. They think that because this was wrong and they got better results when they went here, that is now the thing that they will forever do.
That was the image I just had too. Yeah. So like you go to one side and you're like, I've been enlightened. And so then you're just in that little section of the labyrinth.
When the key is to continue to follow your intuition, even if sometimes, and this has happened to me, it literally takes you back to where you started from. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wait a second, I left this. How am I coming back? But that's because to get back there, you've walked the labyrinth.
Well,
and you've returned as a different person. That's the point. You have changed. And that is the point.
Yep.
That's the point of intuition too. Not that it tells you the right thing to do at the right moment at all times, but that if you continue to follow your intuition, you walk the labyrinth and it transforms you as a person.
Exactly. So you're a completely different being, more informed, wiser. Sometimes it warns you what not to do.
Absolutely. That's the strength of intuition, though.
I was reminded of that teaching by Francis Bacon, who he says, you start studying philosophy, and if you only go halfway, you end up left in the darkness,
or you become
godless.
Didn't he say you become an atheist?
Right. He's like, you just don't believe in God. He's like, if you keep following the path of philosophy, it brings you back to God. And so, but then now you come back with greater faith, greater understanding. Is walking the
greater
labyrinth.
Doubt.
Well, right. Exactly. Expands on the doubts. You understand your doubts,
right,
and you understand your fears and your concerns, but we have to do that. So going back to then what we were saying is like, yes, you have to have the tools. You've got to have a big, beautiful tool set, and you have to have the wisdom and intuition.
You have to develop your intuition.
And then knowing how to use the tools skillfully and with the art and the refinement of a practiced tradesman. So that probably all sounds really overwhelming to parents. But that's like, if we want to do a phenomenal job, if we want to have extraordinary family life and we want to be world-class parents, well, that's what we signed up for.
Right. It's a career.
You thought you were just signing up for sex. You're like, this is great. Man and a woman.
And a little baby. So
and then
cute.
babies will come. This is so cute. And you feel like you're just getting this little baby that's now you have your little family. And you're like, no. What you signed up for
was a career.
Yes, a lifelong career of figuring out how to do the most complicated, most challenging, and most rewarding
and important
occupation on the planet, hands down. It is so important. So anyways, we're putting all of that, the intuition, the wisdom, the experiences of all the ages and stages, we're incorporating all these lessons, everything we learned with ourselves, things that worked for us and worked for our clients. We've been able to help people all across the planet for 2 decades. We're putting that in that course. And today we're going to talk about
specifically,
gentle parenting.
Yeah.
But I want to say being gentle as a parent, but knowing when not to be gentle.
Yes.
And so there's nuance here, and we're going to try to give as many specifics as possible so we can fit this in, because there's a draw, obviously, to like, hey, I want to be gentle. I don't want to be screaming and yelling and beating and be the monster or the witch that I never wanted to be. I want to be friendly and kind. I want to have a great relationship with my kids. But then you're like, I try that and my kids just ignore me or walk all over me.
Exactly. Right.
And you're like, well, that crap doesn't work. But some parents keep doing it. They're like, well, I want to be gentle and say, okay, I got a perfect example. We had a sick puppy. So I took her to the vet yesterday, and they're like, well, they didn't know what sickness she had. So they're like, why don't you wait in the parking lot? So I sat in the parking lot for 2 stinking hours waiting, but I got to observe humanity, all kinds of different humans bringing their animals. And it was the perfect example of like parenting styles, authoritarian, right? And gentle. Mostly what I saw was gentle parenting of their pets. And I just sat there chuckling because these individuals, they let the animals make all the decisions. And I could tell, I'm like, man, these animals literally run their lives. The owners do what the animal decides it wants to do. Wherever it wants to go, however long it wants to stop, like, oh, it wants to go over this way. And so I was watching this lady, she's trying to get back to her car. She's trying to leave, but the dog wanted to look at other things. And so she's just wandering around doing whatever the dog wants to do. And so they're just observing them, and having met lots of people, because I got into dog training like 20 years ago. Is watch people get their lives are taken over by their pets, and they don't give them any direction or directive.
Well, and I think because we want to talk about this today, and I think this is a good place to make a differentiation, because especially in that example, and to some people, gentle parenting is equal to permissive, what we call permissive parenting. So that's one of the challenges about having a conversation about gentle parenting. And in fact, I've even posted on Instagram about it. And it's that people don't define it the same way.
Right.
Some people would define gentle parenting the way I would describe attachment parenting. And some people would define it or act it out in the world, like they do it in a way that is what I describe
Permissive.
permissive parenting.
Yep.
And
Agreed.
like you were just describing, that style with the dogs, that's permissive parenting to me. So just having that differentiation in definition is helpful so that we know what we're talking about.
Exactly.
So we kind of want to walk through these different things. Okay, well, when is this gentle, AKA attachment parenting, which I think is a positive thing, attachment style, versus gentle, AKA permissive? And when is permissive good, if it is, and when is permissive not a good approach? So,
Love it.
yeah.
It's good. I think that's the way to distinguish it. And we could use different words like, because people think, well, I just want to be nice. I want to be a nice person.
Well, yes, they want to be a nice person. In fact, yeah, I remember at times during my parenting journey thinking like the meanest part of me comes out with my family. And that's sad, right? Like nobody really wants that. They don't want to be the meanest version of them with their kids.
And that's
painful.
probably most common.
Yeah, maybe.
That it's with the people we love the most, who matter the most to us, that
bring out the worst in
the
us.
ugly comes out.
Right. And so like I hated that. And so I'm like, I want to be the best version of myself with my family, right? That's the ideal. We want to be a nice person with our family. And yet, as you already touched on, if we do this permissive, gentle parenting, it's like because we want to be nice, then we end up getting walked all over and then we feel like trash.
And the kids don't turn out because they don't even know what to do with themselves. Yeah, it backfires.
Yeah.
So I guess for this definition, being nice, Mr. Nice Guy or being nice doesn't work. People, they don't respect you if you're nice.
Especially if you equate that with permissive.
And you're permissive, yeah, you get walked all over. It's like, that doesn't work.
But we do want to talk about, and we will talk about the nice that's also authoritative.
I would say kind. I like that word. So if you're just trying to be nice and be likable, trying to fit in, you want your kids to like you, that's very different than I'm going to be a kind but firm person. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have attachment. I'm going to have authoritative, which is good, not the dictator.
Authoritarian.
Right. And so we're going to walk through this and give examples, but we want to acknowledge that it's challenging. They're going to push the buttons and push the boundaries, and you're going to just feel exhausted and overwhelmed and frustrated and think they're not listening. It's not working. The only time they respond is when I yell, scream, or spank or threaten. Okay, then I get a response. And that's when parents like, I'll keep resorting to what works.
Right.
But the truth is it's not working. It's just getting a reaction.
And getting short-term results, but it's not working in creating the long-term relationships that make you want to spend time with your children and want them want to spend time with you. So kind of a little bit of a history of how this, because the other challenge we're facing as parents is that there's also these societal expectations of what parenting should look like how it's supposed to be done. And especially if you look through the generations, the boomers were a very authoritarian style. So it was basically like
dictators.
Because I said so, I'm the boss. You need to do it because I'm in charge. That was just the approach. It was like obedience. Obedience was expected. Children should be seen and not heard, that type of thing, right?
Well, and use the belt.
Yeah.
Right. Just like, there was no hesitation. Like you talk
because
back, you do anything, the belt comes off and you get whipped.
It was expected by society, and it was just expected from children to toe the line.
I think it's important. I know you're going to expound on this a little bit. I think it's important to just point out what most of us don't think about. The parenting style, the predominant influence on parenting is social expectations of that generation. And that's really, really, really important to understand, because we don't know that. You're just born into it. You're raised a certain way. And then you think when you become a parent, you're like, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. And your version of different comes from your generation, reacting to the previous generation. And that's about it. Maybe you hear a little bit about your grandparents' generation, but that's about it. And so most of the parenting that happens in a generation is influenced by the social expectations of that generation. And it's really important to see outside of that and to question all the stuff you've heard since you were little, because it happens to be the latest trend in parenting.
Right. So, which then brings us to the next point that then the millennials, in response to this authoritarian approach from the boomers, and it was also a more like there was an emphasis on independence. Like children were just expected to be independent.
Which
There was
I think was really, really good. Just they'd let the kids
well,
go out and play and
except
go
again, this
wander and
comes down
have
to the
great things.
definition because some of this independence is like, well, you should also be making your own meals and you should be handling your own emotions. Like, I don't want to have to deal with you or be involved in that. I'm living my own life.
You're right.
It's that type
So
of
there was a
independence.
misapplied independence
Yeah.
of kind of a disconnection, a lack of
It was more of a
attachment.
neglect.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
when we think about the 4 parenting styles, which we did a podcast about, it's authoritarian, authoritative, permissive, and neglectful. That type of independence almost falls into the
Right.
neglectful category.
Right. I'm not going to help you with anything.
Yeah.
You figure it out on your own.
Mhm.
It's misapplied independence.
Yeah.
Where I
So
was referring
then
to this,
right, where now
like
it's
letting kids
have some freedom and free
and
time.
yeah, where they can actually go out and build things and get hurt, and jump off things, and now
Right.
everything has to be supervised and monitored, and
Super safe.
like,
No
no,
risk.
you can't play with that because somebody might feel bad, and so you can't do that. You can't. It's like it's so restricted now. There's no free play.
Yeah, right. Okay, so anyways, the millennials responded to this authoritarian style with specifically what we're like, this is where it started, is the gentle parenting approach. And so it was a response to that. And of course, it in a way it was a pendulum swinging to the other side of now it's focusing on not that this is a bad thing, but as we're going to talk about, it can go too far, and it did. It's focusing on empathy, it's focusing on respect, it's focusing on the emotional connection, all which can be amazing things, all things we should be using in our parenting, but swinging to
Too far.
permissive parenting.
Yep.
So it's like you're describing with the dogs at the vet, children in fact become they rule the roost, and you've seen, at least I have, I've seen the videos on Instagram. Many of them are satire, making fun of the permissive parent that's like, is it okay? The gentle parent, is it okay if I touch you? Oh, I know you're feeling big emotions right now. Oh, you're hitting me because you're so mad. Let's talk about it. It's gone too far where it is permissive, and that's also not healthy for children.
Right.
Like children don't really want that. Children want
That's what I was going
to
say.
know who's in charge.
So
They
if you're
want
like-
you to be in charge.
So you're like, oh, I'm just gonna let the kid decide, let them choose. They don't know what to do with it because they're
Right.
children. You give them all this. Basically, it's the permissive and the neglectful, and the poor kid just doesn't know
Feels
which
like
way's
they're in
what.
chaos,
Yeah.
and it's overwhelming to them. Well, okay, so first I want to talk about now the Gen Z, essentially, which is where this younger generation, well, I mean, we're Gen Z, right? I keep getting confused.
I don't know either. We were born in the late 70s.
I wrote it
Well,
down.
but
Okay.
even for context, it doesn't
Yeah,
even
so
matter.
millennials, no, we're not Gen Z. We are in the millennial group.
Okay.
That's where I keep
We're right
getting
at the
confused.
end of the millennial group.
No, we're not. We're
Okay.
Gen X. We're right before them.
My goodness.
So in between the
Boomers was Gen
boomers
X,
is Gen X,
and then millennial,
and then the
Gen
millennials.
Z. I don't know why they come up with these labels,
I
and I
always
guess it
get
doesn't even
confused.
matter. But
But
it's
I'm trying
the
for
generation
context.
after World War II.
Although, and I've also seen where people say, well, there's kind of a generation in between Gen X and millennials, which is our generation because we're the first ones who grew up like without internet and then had internet
Mhm.
type thing.
Which I would say is a unique.
That's
That's a
own
very
thing.
unique one in history.
But what I'm trying to get to is now Gen Z, because I just read an article about this on parents.com. And they're talking about how Gen Z is moving away from the gentle parenting that their parents, the millennials, were doing, which is just right after it, like 1981. I
Mhm.
was born in 79. Gen Z starts 1997 to 2012. So our children, essentially, and others, because our kids started being born in the 2000s, are
See, even our family's divided by how they divide generations. So half of our family's in one, and our
right.
younger kids are now in a different one. So,
But the article was talking about how Gen Z is moving away from the gentle parenting because,
it
well, for
doesn't
one thing,
work.
it doesn't work. And another thing that they mentioned is that it actually produces more parental burnout. Like 1 in 3 gentle parents complain of burnout because of the large emotional investment required to constantly be kind of letting your child lead,
But it's
and
a
you're there trying to prevent tantrums or try to prevent problems or prevent challenges or whatever. Like you're just always there trying to be gentle,
and
right?
nice
And
and
nice,
likable.
which actually can lead to burnout because you don't have clear boundaries
Well, right.
for
So
yourself specifically.
that's when you allow your kids to become the tyrant. And
Yeah.
now you
so
as
now
the
you're
adult are not acting like the adult in the room. You're now being victimized by a baby tyrant.
I literally saw a reel on Instagram of this woman crying. And she said, I mean, it was very sad because she was sincere. It was real, but she was crying, talking about how every single day her 3 and 5-year-old abuse her. They beat her up, they hit her every single day. And she was just in tears. And it was very sad because she was
So
like,
sad.
what do I do? And I'm just thinking, like, this is so sad. One, yeah, it's sad that they're hitting her and abusing her.
But-
Two, it's sad for the children because they're doing that because they feel
The frustration.
her lack of control.
Exactly. And
Like
lack of
she's
direction.
not in charge.
Yep.
As a result, they feel out of control.
And that's why they
so
hit.
that's why they hit.
Yep.
It's almost on a subconscious level. It's like them saying, do something about this. Take charge. Like,
Well-
stop making me be the one in charge.
They're reflecting back to her
Yeah.
what she's giving out. She's like, wait, I'm just trying to be nice and they're hitting me. How's that reflection? It's because she has no control or direction.
She
and
has
so
no
they are
firmness.
Yep. They're reacting like I have no control or direction. So they're out of control because he doesn't have control.
She
and so
doesn't
they're
have-
out of control.
I want to use the word boundaries. She doesn't have boundaries.
Yep.
And so they don't know where the boundaries are. Children will push to find where the boundary is. And once they find it, they feel safe and comfortable.
Right.
They're
They
like,
know
"Oh,
what's expected
there's the
and what's
boundary."
allowed.
But if they can't find that boundary, they will push and push and push to the point of hitting you, beating you up, because
And ending up
they're
in
like,
prison.
yeah. And then they say, oh, here's the boundary. Here's the boundary. That's literally how it works. They will push until society says, here's the boundary. We'll give you, we'll put you
You're
in
not allowed to
prison.
be free anymore. Yeah?
Right. But if we as parents show them where that boundary is, that provides safety and confidence for them to be able to then function in a healthy way.
Yep. And those boundaries, little side note here, we could do a whole episode on this, but those boundaries cannot be arbitrary. You can't just pull them out of a hat and be like, well, I always think
Let's
this.
pick
Or,
this one.
no, my grandma said that. Or I watched this movie one time. And so we'll just pick a boundary here.
Yeah, they'll push it
is
to find
bogus.
where it is. There's a description.
It has to make sense.
It has to make sense. I listened to this guy a long time ago, and he was talking about Beowulf, that epic poem. And it talked about the bottom of the swamp. Like, because the monster came out, and he came and killed all the knights at the feast. And then they killed the monster, but all that did was bring up the mother of the monster. And the whole point was there's always a problem behind the problem, and you have to go. So finally, Beowulf went to the bottom of the swamp. He swam down into the swamp. He killed the mother monster because that was the source of the problem. Your children will push to find the bottom of the swamp. Like, where's the actual foundation here? Where's the real edge? That's what they want to know.
Yes. And I love that because it forces us as parents to get our crap together.
Right. And to ask ourselves hard questions
To
like,
slay our demons
Yeah.
so that our demons aren't raising our kids.
Yes.
And to get resolved and fill the pit in with concrete for good. And the kids go looking for the pit. And you're like, hey, I already took care of it.
Yeah.
There's no pit. And they're
Mhm.
like, okay,
Oh, yes,
great.
exactly.
And now I can be healthy and whole and feel good. So basically what's going on here is we have these generations, and this has happened since the beginning of time. These
Mhm.
generations, and there's always something different, something new. Each generation has some unique thing going on, but life goes on, and there's something crazy. There's a new invention. There's a new technology. There's a new societal problem. There's some kind of disaster, man-made or natural, whatever. There's always something going on in life. What we're talking about is having the skills and the mindsets, the tools, the intuition to be able to handle whatever's going on in whatever generation you're raising your kids in, to be able to adapt to and solve and work through problems, challenges, difficulties, etc., to raise really great kids.
Yes. Using an approach that's evergreen, meaning it will work, it'll
All the
work
time.
consistently
Yep.
regardless of everything else that's going on.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So in every generation, there's been good parents who realized that and raised great people.
Who were usually outside of society and how society was doing things.
Right. They kind of step away from it.
Yeah.
And then in every generation, there's been the masses that is kind of raised trouble and a mess and a lot of dysfunction. I mean, dysfunctional families are the norm, but that doesn't make it okay.
And it's
Just
definitely
because
not
they're
the
common.
ideal.
Right.
And just because it's an ideal doesn't mean it's impossible to
Right.
achieve. It just requires everything we're talking about here.
Hey there, this is Greg Denning. We want to reach as many people as possible and help as many families as possible with these conversations. And we want to keep this podcast ad-free forever. You can help us do that by subscribing on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, your favorite platform, and on YouTube. And leave a quick review and share your favorite episodes with friends and family. It makes a big difference. Thank you for being a part of this very important movement.
Okay, so I do want to go through some of the pros and cons, let's call them, of gentle parenting, and then weave it into what is a better approach. Like, what is this more evergreen approach that we're talking about? So, of course, the main idea behind gentle parenting is that it emphasizes empathy for your children's feelings, which that's a good thing. It emphasizes respecting them, which I also think is a good thing. And it emphasizes emotional validation, emotional connection. All of those are good things when used within the proper boundaries.
And when understood, it's interesting. You and I, and in our family, man, we are adamant about respect. You just respect human beings, no matter how small they are. Even babies and toddlers, they deserve respect. That's often misunderstood. I think if I respect them, then some people think that's when they get permissive. I get them to do whatever they want because I'm going to respect them. That's not respect. That's trouble.
And that can also be challenging too, because I believe, and Erica Komiser backs this up with her own research, that and Jordan Peterson talks about it, that for a baby under the age of 1, it is basically like giving them whatever they need because because their needs are like food, sleep, love, play. And that's how they form this healthy foundation that will carry them through the rest of life. Where too many parents, because of this, I've heard all sorts of stories. In fact, my own grandmother, it was like a baby was on a schedule, but it still happens today. I know people that do this, and you feed them at 4:00, and that's it. I don't care if they're crying for 2 hours before that.
Insanity.
I feed a baby at 4. And so what happens?
Where do people come up with those?
There's books about it. Like I know people who have read the books and like that's what they do. They have them on this schedule. And so that right there is
can I just
counter.
That is so selfish. It is so selfish of the parent, man, and so messed up. So
I'm just thinking about it. I'm like,
massive
is it done from
misapplication.
selfishness? I don't know. Maybe.
Why would they do a schedule? It's so they can keep living their life and do the things they want, whatever.
But in some ways, I think it inhibits their life because I've also seen how it's like, oh, well, the kids have to go to bed at 8:00. And so we can't go out and do anything and everyone has to adjust our schedules.
The whole family has to go home because one kid has to be asleep.
Or all the children, whatever, have to be bed at 8:00. So I don't know if it's selfishness per se, as much as it might just be like I think it's driven from the desire to be a good mother. And it's walking the labyrinth where you walk over here and you find this and you're like, oh, this is it. This is the truth. Order and structure. This is the opposite of chaos. And so you implement it and you hold on to it forever. And then it produces chaos because that doesn't work with children. And, but it was all built on the intention of wanting to be a good parent, right? So I don't know if it's selfishness. It's just misapplied good intentions, perhaps. But my point being is, I don't know, what was the point being? Why?
Well, that was a trendy thing at that time period of.
Well, but it's also keeps popping up. Like even I'm
Yeah,
saying
so
in
it keeps
today's world.
recurring. But okay, so I guess what we're talking about is like you cannot spoil a baby. You have to meet all of their
That's where
needs.
we're, yeah.
And then at that point, you start putting boundaries and structures. You start
Right.
saying, no,
So
we
once
don't
they,
play with poison and razor blades,
Yeah.
and we don't play in the road. So you start putting up these boundaries. And of course, the kids, the little ones will be like, what? They'll scream out and react because they're bumping up against a boundary. And you hold the boundary firmly, and you keep redirecting. You're like, okay, then they understand and trust the boundaries. And if you do it well, they trust you.
yes.
But if you don't set boundaries, or you set boundaries that don't make sense, you lose trust. This is crazy. Starting when they're little toddlers, they stop trusting you. They'll never articulate it. They won't be at 3. They won't be like, you know what? I don't trust you because your boundaries are crap.
Okay, but I'm going to even say that it actually starts sooner than that. That's why the whole thing. That's why I went on that tangent, because that's where the trust begins to build. If they can trust you to fulfill their needs that they're literally incapable of fulfilling themselves, that's where they begin to build that attachment and that deep trust that this is someone I can count on. But if
Yes, you're
they're
right.
screaming at
Right?
you because they're hungry and they have to scream for 2 hours,
Because you're on
and
a
then
schedule.
you feed them and they literally have no clue because they can't tell time or understand the concept, and now you decide to feed them, they just think you're not someone I can trust because you literally make no sense to me.
Yep. And
I don't
the
understand
world
this
isn't
world.
safe.
And the world's not safe.
It's
And
all arbitrary.
right.
I don't get to eat when I'm hungry. I don't know
Right.
why I
It's
get to eat.
totally out of my control.
Yeah.
And so you build this relationship built on chaos, and that's why they don't trust you. That's where it began. But no child, no baby is going to be able to communicate to you. They just cry. And you don't know that that cry means I can't trust you. This world isn't safe.
And
So
100% this will show up later in their tweens and teens,
absolutely.
as young adults. And you think, oh, my kid's
It
just
shows up when
rebellious.
they're.
This. It's like, you created that.
I have heard from multiple people, multiple parents who say, my children were great until they turned 3 or 4, and then they were out of control. And I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's probably because of things like this when they were a baby or 1 or 2, and that relationship of trust wasn't built because their needs were not met when they needed to be met, and the boundaries were either too strict and controlling or not there at all. So
and those of you
that's why
listening,
all
some of you right
this
now are
is
like,
so
oh, no, I've
critically
ruined my
important.
child. This can
You
all
haven't
be
ruined 'em.
rebuilt.
Exactly.
You can rebuild the
You can
attachment.
repair it all. You can heal
You can
it.
fix it and have a great relationship. But if you keep going on oscillating between being permissive and then negligent and
Or
then
just
a
being
dictator,
continually gentle all the time, right? Like that's why we're discussing the nuances of this, because it helps us to find that perfect yin and yang balance that becomes this approach that is healing while still rebuilding the trust and whatnot. Okay, let me talk a couple more things. So, of course, the other emphasis of gentle parenting is no yelling, no punishment, and no shame. I actually agree with all of that. Actually, there's some rare occasions when you should yell, I think, but yelling should not be a daily or weekly
no,
thing.
it'd be very rare.
Very rare.
So, and just create this framework in your head. It's so helpful. It's like, there is a time to yell, but it's extremely rare. There is a time to punish, but it's actually really extremely rare. And most people are going to be like, oh, wait, what? No, I punish my kids every day. That's what parenting is. No, it's not.
Nope.
Punishment should be very rare. And then shame. So we're in this generation right now. It's like, no shame, stop shaming, no shaming. There is a place for shame. But
Well,
it should be very rare.
I'm going to push on that a little bit, because I don't think there's a place for a parent shaming their child. There is a place for a child to feel shame. But that generally, I think, occurs because of the circumstances. And our job as parents in that case is to stay out of the way and not protect them from feeling the shame. Does that make sense? Like, it's a little nuanced there.
So you're saying don't rescue them from feeling the weight of what they've done.
Yes.
Because a lot of parents step into, they're constantly rescuing. But I would say, and here's why I say this, I bring it up, and I know it's one of those things where we're in this no shaming craze. And here's the context. Like, there are very shameful behaviors.
Right.
And for those things, people should feel ashamed.
But I think that that's what I'm saying.
And I guess
I'm
where
talking about
I would share a different perspective, because you're saying, well, the parents should stay out of it. I think it's the parent's job to teach the child what is shameful,
Agreed.
truly shameful.
Agreed.
And these are like sick, horrible behaviors that most children aren't going to be doing. But they need to know, hey, here's the boundary. Beyond the boundary, beyond that boundary, there's a cesspool of filth, vile, horrible behaviors where one should be very ashamed. It's interesting. In Spanish, there's a word called sin vergüenza. Basically, it's shameless. And you refer it to a person who's just doing terrible things. You're like, that's the adjective or that's the description. Like, he says a sin vergüenza. He has no shame. He does things, doesn't feel it. And there are shameful things where people ought to feel shame.
So I agree with you. And I think in a way that's what I'm saying, because when I'm saying a parent should not shame their child, I'm meaning, because I think it's too common, of a parent saying, you're so lazy. You're such a bum.
Yes.
You're this, you're that. To me, that's a parent shaming their child, and that shouldn't be done.
100%.
But
I agree.
Let's say
especially for those things, because those are just learning experiences. Because you might think, well, being a lazy person is shameful. But as you go,
that's true.
It's true. But as you're going through the stages
And
of childhood development, that's not a lazy person. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And parents are worried, like, oh my gosh, my son's going to be a lazy bum. I need to shame him out of doing this. But what I'm saying is that doesn't work.
Right, exactly.
But what does work is, because I'm also not saying that you can't express, let's say, disappointment with your child,
right,
or express sadness, or I don't know, like you can express your own negative emotions towards their behavior without intentionally shaming them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not going to hold back my words because I don't want them to feel shame. But I'm also not going to say,
throw them under the bus and
say
label
mean
them
things to them. I will literally just say, like, oh, I'm really disappointed with that. And that's about it. But I'm going to allow them to feel that. But I'm not going to say, you're such a disappointment to me. That's a very different thing.
Huge distinction right there. So important.
One is intentionally shaming. The other is just allowing them to feel the emotion they should be feeling appropriately. That's the nuance.
I want to throw in a little warning here, because you said something that just reminded me of what we see often. For many parents, their whole parenting experience is essentially telling their kids how frustrated, irritated, or disappointed they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just too much. And it's just this burden that kids can't psychologically or emotionally handle.
Well, and it actually literally creates their self-identity, which then, of course, is a negative one. They have a very low self-worth.
It just wrecks it.
Because everything you say to your child becomes truth to them.
Right, and identity.
Yeah.
And so I don't want anyone to hear us and say, well, okay, I'm going to let my kids know how disappointed. Sometimes that's the parent's problem.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, quote, constantly disappointed by their kids. Like, well,
maybe you just have the wrong expectations.
That's or the wrong strategy, or you're not a very effective parent yet.
Mm-hmm.
So your kid's behavior is off the chart, but it's not them, it's you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, well, I'm just going to constantly let them know how disappointed I am in them. That just wrecks them. It wrecks your relationship. It wrecks their identity. It just all backfires. And so much of it comes back to like, well, you just need to get your own crap together, instead of every day you're just endlessly disappointed in your children's behavior. It's like, wait a minute. And one of the ways is there's so much to parenting. We got to go on and on and on. One of the reasons that we're constantly disappointed, well, one, we have misaligned expectations.
Or too high expectations where we expect them to behave older than
that's where I was going.
their age.
We're not allowing our kids to be kids, to act their age. No, that's it.
No, I'm really glad you pointed that out, because even when I was saying that, I do want to make it clear that just like yelling and punishment, which should be extremely rare, it's also rare when I will say something like that to my child of like, oh, I'm disappointed. In fact, I can hardly even think of an example when that's happened. It should be very rare.
Like a handful of times.
Yeah, it's not something
in their entire lifetime with us. All the years in our home, it's a handful of times.
Yeah.
If that.
And so it's not something where like every day, oh, I'm disappointed that you spilled the milk. Or I'm disappointed that you my daughter today, who's 8, she tracked mud through the whole house up to our apartment. And I went up there. I said, Sandriana, you tracked mud through the house. And I just said, come with me. Let's go clean it. And I sprayed, and she had the paper towel, and we wiped off all the mud. And that was it.
Okay,
Done.
that's a perfect example where if we're trying to be super nice and gentle, we may not say anything, and you'd go clean it up yourself. You never say anything. It's like, it's normal. Or on the other side, you're like, you're such a disappointment. I've told you. Why don't you pay attention? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Don't you know you have mud on your feet?
Yeah.
Just on and on. And just wreck them.
Yeah. And I was just very clear. I said, Sandriana. And I used her full name, right? Which she knew gets her attention. Sandriana, you tracked mud through the house. You need to take your shoes off downstairs.
Did you do it in that tone?
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, in my head.
So we could ask her what tone it sounded like. But we don't.
And then we just cleaned it up, and that was it.
This is a perfect example.
And we moved on.
Because some parents overreact to that, some underreact. And you have to find this balance of just pointing out, because she was just, she was
8. Clueless. She literally was. And well, the cute thing was, because we live in this resort in Portugal, and so she walked through the basement part and up to her apartment, and then took her shoes off at the apartment door, because she knows not to wear her shoes in the apartment. I love it. So that was great. I'm like, you took your shoes off by the door, good, but you tracked mud through the whole resort, And so, but again, then we just cleaned it up, because that was the point, was that it needed to be cleaned up, and then that will help her to remember, take my shoes off at this door. Yep. Especially when I'm out with the puppies in the mud. So
we'll use this example. Again, our whole intention here is to share things that we've done that has worked for us. And this has worked great with all of our kids. Whatever they happen to be doing, you just stop and you say, hey, Sanj.
This is what you did.
You just tracked mud through the whole house. So come help me clean it up. That's it. That's the tone. Those are the words.
And it doesn't have to be, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why aren't you thinking? It's none of that, because she's a child. She's 8.
And
That's
even
what
at 8,
8-year-olds do.
You could maybe say, hey, go clean that up. Go do it. And that might be a bit much for her. Or depending on the kid, they might be able to handle it.
It was a long distance, so I wanted to make sure she got all
of the way back.
All of the spots.
And so, yeah. And okay, that's a great point that, Rach, you've always been good at, is if you want it done a certain way, do it with them.
Absolutely.
Because if you're, hey, go clean it up, and then you come back, you didn't even do a good job. You missed all these foot, blah, blah, and you just perpetuate your own irritation.
Yeah.
Instead of well, let's go do it together.
Because I have these certain expectations, but I'm not communicating exactly how I want it to be done. And so then I end up getting disappointed because they didn't meet the expectations when I didn't show them. I didn't communicate my expectations. Too often that's happening with too many parents, where they, going back to what we were talking about with the expectations, it's like they're getting upset and they're disappointed in their kids because they had these expectations for them, but their kids didn't know that. And they're operating at their own level. And then we're saying, oh, I'm disappointed in you because you failed to meet my expectations that I never
weren't even communicated. Exactly. So here's another example of this happens, and the permissive parent, who maybe refers to himself as a gentle parent or a nice parent, the kid tracks mud through the house, and they don't want to say anything. They don't want to make them feel bad. They don't want to control them.
Or with empathy for the child, because I also have this part of me where I'm like, oh, she's a cute little girl. She was playing with the puppies. She went up to get a snack before we go to the gym. Like, I can empathize with all of that and understand that she didn't do it on purpose.
Right. There was no malice.
There was no malice. She wasn't trying to be bad. So I can empathize with that and just think, well, I'll just clean it up because I don't want to get after her, or I don't want to make her do it.
And that's where I was going to go, is no wonder they feel burnt out, because they do that day after day after day. They're following it around, cleaning up, doing this massive load of work because they're not setting up healthy boundaries and teaching.
Because when I do that, when I did this morning, what I'm doing is setting the boundary, because now it's clear to her. And in fact, she was telling her brother, Mom made a new rule. We can't wear our shoes past the mudroom downstairs. And she's like, when did you make that rule? I'm like, well, I made it this morning after you tracked mud through.
Well, and that's kind of been a rule for the last year. But
it has not been enforced. So that's why.
We keep reiterating the rules.
Yeah.
We keep reminding, especially the younger ones. The older ones get way better at it. And so you keep doing it. And a lot of parents are like, I've told them 10,000 times. All right, keep telling them and keep gently enforcing it until they get it. Like parenting, this is the essence of all great parenting, is effective teaching and mentoring. That's
And
what great
communication.
parenting is. And the communication is the teaching and the mentoring. That's what parenting is. It's not the punishments. It's not cleaning up the messes. It's not even like feeding them and cleaning up after them, doing their laundry and providing a house and driving them around. That's so many parents in our generation are caught in that. That's what they think parenting is. I drive them everywhere. I take care of them. I buy groceries for them. I cook, I clean, I wash the lawn, I clean up the house. I provide all this stuff for them. I'm being a good parent. That's not parenting. Anybody can do that stuff. Parenting is effective teaching and mentoring. That's what great parenting is. And when it's done well, it creates the results we want. So if I want to be a great parent, I'm constantly looking for and taking advantage of teaching opportunities.
Mhm.
This morning was a perfect one.
Okay, so let's go back talking about the gentle parenting, because what we just mentioned, the empathy, the respect, the no yelling, the no shaming, like all of that is actually really good for building a secure attachment with your child, building the trust, like we already talked about, and helping them build their own emotional literacy. Because if you work on this emotional connection and validation, that helps them to understand themselves as human beings with emotions so that they begin to understand how they operate. It also helps them to feel safe and seen. But of course, there are some, let's say, downsides if you only use those if you think I'm a gentle parent and so I'm only going to do that, which means no yelling, no punishing, no shaming, no, always empathy, always respect, always whatever, then of course that requires, well, it naturally leads to what we're talking about, more permissive parenting, because there's fewer boundaries. Because whatever it is about being a human, like there's something that requires you to, I'll say, harden a little bit to hold a boundary. At least for me as a woman, maybe it's different for men. Like even the little scenario I just gave, I had to have a little bit of toughness, a little bit, you know what I mean, in order to hold that boundary a bit. Because otherwise it's so much easier to me to just kind of be soft and flowy and whatever. I have to have a little bit more, if that makes sense, right? And so
I don't know.
if we're in
I
this,
think maybe it's easier for men. It's easy for me, but I don't know if that's because I'm a man. I think for men it might be a little bit easier, but I've developed this realizing, no, there has to be boundaries. And so I worked on that because, a lot of men are people pleasers too.
right.
And they want to be liked and they want to be nice. And so I think that's
It,
good in
well,
describing that. Some of us have to,
the best word is firmness.
yeah.
We have to be a little more firm in order to hold that boundary. And it requires the ability to go back and forth from it. Because I went from, because she was downstairs with me, everything was great. She went up to get a snack. Then I checked, there's the mud across. I had to firm up a little bit, go talk to her, say, hey, we need to clean this up, and then go back to
Soft.
soft.
So it's not rigid. I like
Yeah,
that.
it's not rigidity. So it's like this flexible firmness.
I like that.
But if you're in this gentle parenting mindset where you think I always must be gentle and soft, that's why it's more difficult to hold boundaries, because you're not becoming firm at any moment. And I think that's what can lead to the burnout for parents, because if we're always soft, people end up walking on us and then we get burnt out because there's no boundaries that are held. Plus, it also requires an immense amount of emotional strength as a parent to constantly be gentle. And that's not because,
Or to constantly be rigid.
well, either one.
Both.
But no, I think this is true for dads too, because a lot of dads have, well, I mean, they can be known for having tempers or whatever, or whatever. What I'm saying is that it requires a lot of emotional and mental willpower to constantly be gentle, because as human beings, we experience a lot of different emotions. We experience frustration, we experience irritation, we experience annoyance and anger. And part of what I want to call authentic parenting, right? Because I'm writing a book about it, is that we appropriately show and share those emotions when we feel them with our children so that they can, one, develop emotional literacy, and two, learn how to deal with them. Where if we focus on always being gentle all the time, that starts to feel a little fake
It's
to
inauthentic.
everybody.
That was
It's
my first
it's
response.
inauthentic.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I think it leads to burnout, because being inauthentic is exhausting.
Yeah, I'm seeing the warning sign again though.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
you're you're spot on. It's exactly right. But some people hear this, think, well, okay, I'm just gonna be authentic and I'm gonna tell my kids what I'm feeling all the time. It's like, whoa.
That's
What
the
you don't
pendulum to the other side.
realize is, you're depressed all the time, you're irritated all the time, you're angry all the time. That has nothing to do with your kids.
Mhm.
It's not about your kids, it's about your own past. And because I get to work with individuals and couples and families literally every day, I see this all the time where moms or dads, they're feeling these huge emotions and they think it's the kids. Well, the kids are
Mhm.
just a catalyst that's
They're just
bringing up.
triggering a wound they already have.
Exactly. And so it's like, so, you take a mom who's just always angry and frustrated and disappointed. And she hears this thing, I'm just going to be authentic with my kids and tell them, not realizing, like, no, the reason you're so upset is you need to
Mhm.
process and resolve and heal a lot of stuff you had before your kids were born, or even things that are being brought up. It's the work you have to do, that inner work. So it's so important. So
Mhm.
yes, you're right. We
Mhm.
have to be authentic to that. But if we find that we're chronically or perpetually in a negative emotional state, I highly doubt it's the kids. In
Mhm.
fact, it's almost never the kids. And if the kids' behavior is what brings it up, well, that's a chance for us as parents. Rachel, I had to do this. Right? We had to do this work. Like kids are just that's why kids are so awesome, is they
Mhm.
expose you to all your weaknesses.
Well, that's why family life is
Yeah.
awesome, because it's literally like a laboratory for personal growth.
Exactly. So you get married and you're like, oh, it's my wife. You're like, no, it's not. My wife's just bringing this up so I can address it. And then we have kids. Oh, it's the kids. And you're like, wait, no, it's not. The kids are just bringing up this thing that I need to work on. And so
Mhm.
I keep working on me. So I
Mhm.
love to say, work harder on yourself than you do on anything else. Just keep working on you. And every time you're in the family laboratory, it's like, oh, there's another thing. Oh, there's another
Yeah.
thing. And you keep healing. And so then that way you can be authentic.
Right.
So in our family, Rachel and I and the kids, we are happy, joyful, resilient people the vast majority of the time.
Well,
And if
I
it's off, then there's something off and we talk about it.
Uh, and I also, though, like, I want to paint an accurate picture for people, because on a daily basis, we still also feel frustration, irritation, annoyance, especially because we're working on so many projects. So, you're trying to dig a hole in the ground that's of rock, or, so you're frustrated about that. I want to point out that there's frustration, but the difference, I think, is that you're not putting your frustration on our kids, right? We've learned how to separate it out so that we recognize the source of the frustration, and then we don't take it out on other
It has
family
nothing to
members
do with
as
them.
much as possible.
Well,
Like,
and I don't
not that we're
even,
perfect,
at
but
least for me, I don't even let it, like, I don't let it get to me. I don't let it become a controlling or dominating factor in my
right.
life because those kind of things, they want to play Monopoly. They want to take over. And so, I'm out working on a hole and it's just filled with trash. I'm like, who would bury all garbage here? And so, and my son's out there working with me, and the most he's gonna see is me like, man, where do they do this stuff? That's it. And then I dig the hole, and we're out there having a great conversation, having fun, playing with the animals, and we just keep digging the hole. And then things will go wrong, and I fell and crushed my puppy and hurt myself, smashed this whole little enclosure we built for him. And I was hurting, I was frustrated, and I rebuilt the whole thing in the dark.
Yeah.
And I just came back in, and it's like,
Came
oh
inside.
man,
This is what happened.
crushed my puppy. Hope he's okay. And that was that.
Right.
I don't have to come in and throw things and yell and scream and whine and cry and spend the whole rest of the night and the next morning upset.
Right.
Why? That's not who I want to be, and that's not how I want to experience life. I want to emphasize this for people because when I realized this, it was an absolute game changer. I don't have to let those things, the circumstances, the frustration, have a big part of my life. even a significant part. I don't have to participate in that. I don't have to allow it. I literally get to choose. And everyone listening, you literally get to choose what you experience in life and how you show up and how you go through life.
But what I still want to reemphasize for people is that it doesn't mean you're still not having those negative emotions. The key is you're not staying in those negative emotions. It's normal to feel them. It's normal to be frustrated and irritated and annoyed about things. That's normal. The problem is when we get stuck there and then spread it to everyone else in the family. That's the problem.
We absorb it.
Yeah, we absorb it and then we literally pass it on because emotions are contagious. So we have learned how to, and now at this point, quickly, like what you've described, you have learned how to quickly process those negative emotions so that you can remove most or all of them before you come in to interact with the family. So it doesn't spread. Of course, people are like, well, how do you do that? Well, there's a lot of strategies for doing it. But as you get better and better at it, it can become very fast. Like it happens
Almost
in
instantaneous.
minutes, sometimes
Yeah.
instantaneous.
Yep.
If you've never done this
But
before, though,
that's the path of emotional mastery.
right? If you've never done this before, I found that one of the best ways to do it is by writing on scratch pieces of paper or something, writing all the negative, all the ugly thoughts, and then just throwing it away. Like that is one way of literally processing the negative emotions. Now, if you have a lot of stacked emotions that keep coming up when your kids trigger you
You
with
might
their
need to do
misbehavior,
a
you may have
regular
to do a
writing.
lot of
Yeah.
writing. You may need to write every single day. But
I
over
would
time,
highly recommend that. Like
Yeah.
if
absolutely.
you've got lots of past stuff, you're constantly
And the
feeling
way
a negative
you can
state.
tell is that you feel angry and annoyed and triggered by things all the
A lot.
time. Then do the writing. Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Right.
Literally. And I tell people this when I'm working with clients. In fact, I just met with a client just a couple of days ago. I'm like, look, this is non-negotiable for you. You have to process all these just pretty terrible things that happened to you recently. If you don't, they will stay bottled up and you'll just spread them for years to your wife, to your children, to anyone you associate with. Get that crap out of your soul and do it by vomiting on paper and hard workouts and sauna sessions. I mean, you're just processing all the garbage so it's not a part of you.
Yes.
And trust me, you guys, I had to do that. I had a lot of baggage. I had a lot of crap from decisions my parents had made and moving out early and just suffering things as a youth. Had I kept hold of that, it would have just spread to Rachel and my kids. But I got rid of it before I even met Rach.
And continue to work on it.
Right. And it's when something came up, I was like, oh, okay, that's got to go.
Right. And so what happens, though, the beautiful thing that happens when you do that is then you get to a point where you're not triggered by your children's behavior because it's not holding up something from your past.
Because you removed the triggers.
Because you removed it. And so now you're more level-headed, you're more clear-headed, you're able to observe this behavior, detached, and you make better decisions about how to parent because you don't have all of this emotional stacking that you're dealing with. So you parent in a very different way.
Right. A good visual for this is those, I don't know what they're called, the little thing that measures seismic movements and measures earthquakes, like the old school one.
Or like a heart monitor?
Well, no, the heart monitor is always going where if there's a tiny little movement and just
like an earthquake.
Just a little shift in the plates and just a little blurb on the screen. Otherwise it's flat and then whoop, little blurb. And some people right now, it's like the kids drop the milk and boom, it's like it's a 6. A 6.5 earthquake. And I'm giving this as a literal example that happened a few months ago. Dad comes home and the little girl had, she was being creative in the kitchen. She's like 3 and just, he loses it over the milk. And I get it. I understand, especially as a provider. And you're like, I had to pay for that. And everything's expensive. Food's expensive. And I had to work for that. And you just a whole gallon. And so like this little thing is like, that's way too much. So pull that way, way, way back. And the vast majority of people do it, and it's for different things. You might think, I never get upset about the milk. But then the electricity gets left on. These are all the things dads do. The light's on. The door got left open again. And there's mosquitoes or flies coming in. Or whatever.
All the ACs going out
You
to
went
the
out
hot Georgia
and
heat.
you played in the car and you left the interior light on in the car and the door's unlocked. And
And the
when we went out in the
battery's
morning,
dead.
the battery's dead. These kids are kids and spouses are spouses. But you start bringing that back to where even if it, okay, that costs us $1,000 or 5 or 10. Well, that sucks. But I'm not going to blow a gasket.
And so all of this, we're trying to fit into the gentle parenting, which we're now moving to authentic parenting. Like we want to be authentic, but part of that authenticity, like you're talking about, warning sign, that doesn't mean have a 6.5 over the milk. What it means is in this authentic journey, processing your own past, your own childhood trauma, so that you can respond appropriately. You can respond with firmness. Maybe you respond with a 1 on the Richter scale as necessary when needed, but it happens intentionally by choice, not because you are reacting to your own inner wounds.
Yes, Rachel, that's huge. I choose my response instead of just react.
Yes.
Out of control.
Right.
That's the golden ticket right there to really phenomenal parenting.
Where the gentle parenting movement is focusing on calmness and gentleness at all times.
Which is often pretended. We've had parents say,
exactly, pretended. It has to be pretended.
I'm pretending
it's all the time.
to not be upset.
Yeah,
I didn't show my kids how upset I was.
You'll say things like, well, did you remain calm during the day? Well, I tried to remain calm, or I'm making an effort to be calm. And
I was calm in front of the kids. I'm like, yeah, but you're furious. Yeah. Right. She was like blowing up.
Putting on a calm face is not the same as being calm. Actual calmness feels like calm. So you either are calm or you're not. No matter what the facade is showing, you're either one or the other.
Yep.
So
I love that.
So that's why, now we want to talk about the pivot that's being made by many parents, supposedly by Gen Z, according to parents.com. Where
I hope so. I don't know.
Yeah, Well, at least in the article, they're recognizing that this one size fits all approach, like, gentle parenting, one size fits all. I'm going to do it with every child, every time, every interaction. They're recognizing at least that that's not working. And so what the article said is that they're switching to a hybrid parenting. It did not specifically say that they were moving to authoritative parenting, which is what we emphasize and like to talk about. But they were doing more of a hybrid where they're recognizing, I can kind of pick and choose strategies here and use what works, kind of the toolbox. Use what works for the child, for the situation, for the whatever, rather than gentle parenting all the time.
I hope that's true. But it requires awareness, like you and I talk about all the time. It requires awareness that there's even parenting strategies or philosophies or different ways to handle things, that there's different tools and abilities that you can change, that you can choose. That has to be that awareness. And now people listening to this podcast, like kudos to you guys. You're sitting here listening to a parenting podcast. That's fantastic. You're a unique group. The vast majority of parents don't read books. They don't listen to podcasts. They're just
scroll on social media.
They're unconscious. So it's that scale of unconscious incompetence. They don't even know that they're showing up as permissive or negligent parents, subconsciously doing what they do. And so it requires this sense of awareness to say, hey, wait a minute, what would be more effective? What would actually work better?
So I guess what we kind of want to emphasize and close on is specifically talking about, from our perspective, and work with our own children, work with clients, the approach that does work best is what we call the authoritative parenting style, which is that balanced, I love the yin and yang, between empathy and structure. Like, empathy and emotions and attachment and boundaries, firmness, structure. Like you need to have both in order for you to have really effective parenting.
I love using the words, for me personally, as being firm and kind.
Right.
And I can be both simultaneously. They are not in opposition.
Mutually
I can be
exclusive.
Right, exactly. So I can
literally
be
firm and kind at the same time.
And kind. A lot of people I talk to are like, how? You can't do it. And it's often because they think, and I remember going through this, I'm like, the only way I can hold this boundary is by yelling or threatening. And it took me some time to work through that. It's like, wait a minute, no, I can totally hold a boundary literally while smiling and meaning it. It wasn't a fake smile, I can be happy. I can be jovial. I can be joyful. I can even just be neutral. I can be sincerely calm and like, nope, I'm going to hold this boundary here.
I think one of the reasons people struggle with this, for me, as I'm thinking about it, I think this is why I even can struggle with it, is because most people equate being kind with being comfortable. If you
Mm,
comfortable in meaning you're not making another person feel uncomfortable or
hmm
making yourself feel uncomfortable. But the reality is you can practice kindness and still be uncomfortable, right? But we think that you can't. We think kindness equals everybody feels comfortable.
right.
Where
Because we confuse it with being nice.
yes,
Yeah.
where we need to kind of reshift that of like, well, I can be kind and still make you uncomfortable and maybe make myself uncomfortable by what I'm saying by holding this boundary, but I'm being kind in the way I'm doing it, meaning I'm not yelling, I'm not screaming, I'm not shaming, I'm not belittling. I'm being kind. But you may
But
feel
that boundary's
uncomfortable
not
by
moving.
this boundary I'm
Yeah.
holding.
We learned that with our toddlers.
Mm-hmm.
When they would want to, it was our oldest ones, and they would try to blow a gasket. We were trying to figure out, like, okay, how do we remove tantrums for good? How do we hold a gentle boundary for little kids? Let
Mm-hmm.
them be their age, but not let them act like animals
And not let them hurt themselves or hurt
or hurt other
others.
people. The hitting, the biting, the destroying things, making
Mm-hmm.
messes, like, well, that's unacceptable. How do I sit here as a father, not get angry, not blow a gasket myself, just stay calm, good, love the kid, and set up a gentle boundary while they're like inside this gentle boundary, like just
Mm-hmm.
losing it and screaming and yelling and fighting and kicking and biting and going nuts. And I learned how to do this. And this is where I learned this principle of like I could sit there loving them, like and I genuinely, my heart and mind were in a good place. Like I wasn't mad, I wasn't upset, nothing. I'm just sitting there with them and they're bonkers, right? They're going nuts. And I'm like, come here, no, we can't do that. No, no, you can't hit me. No, you can't bite. Come here. As soon as you take a breath and calm down, we go back to playing, we go back to stuff, but I'm not going to leave you out there playing or, in a public place or
Mm-hmm.
whatever when you're just acting like a
Mm-hmm.
wild animal.
Yeah.
And
So
that's where we learn to be kind and firm.
right. So especially when they're young, and I think that this, of course, works best when they're young. It's easier to teach this specific principle than when they're older and bigger than you, of course. But we would either one physically move them from one place to another. So it's almost like, okay, here's the consequence. You're acting out. Let's take you to a place where you can act out in a safe place
So
and not hurt other people.
removing them is the firm boundary.
Mhm.
How you remove them reflects kindness or
Right.
not. We've seen so many parents, like they are mean. The way they move them is so mean. They jerk them and grab them, yell at them and scold them, is make them feel horrible. We've seen so
Hmm.
many examples of that. It's like, no,
But you
I'm
can go
I'm
with a
removing
heart of
you.
peace,
Right.
literally just pick them up and take them out. And then one option is you just have them say in a room or a bathroom or something, you keep them contained in that area. And it's the idea of you're upset, you're feeling this way, when you are ready to calm down, we can return to the group or we can return to the family. Or the other thing, like you were
Well,
saying,
let's
you would
point out,
physically
yeah.
restrain them like on your lap or something. Again, with calmness, with peace, with love, whispering in their ear, telling them,
Hey, it's
it's
good.
okay,
You're good.
okay, fine.
And I think it's important to emphasize here. It's okay. We have to tell the kid it's okay to feel frustrated and
Yeah.
angry and
Right.
upset. Like all this emotion you're feeling, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're not telling you to be numb. We're not telling you you're wrong. We're just saying
Yeah.
you can't behave like that. You can't
Yeah.
treat other people like that. You can't.
Because you're frustrated, you can't hit your
Yeah.
sister or you can't bite or you can't throw things. So we're differentiating the emotion itself between the behavior and showing them. And we've even done it. If you want to come in here and punch this punching bag or punch this pillow, great.
Right.
That's fine. You can't punch other people, right? And so when they're young, we're physically helping them with that. And then
And then
there are at
helping them
times,
self-regulate
yeah.
because I am calm,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm in a good place emotionally. It helps them self-regulate, well, co-regulate
Co-regulate.
very
Exactly.
quickly.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, dad's totally chill.
You're speaking
And they're like,
calmly.
ooh, they just
Breathing.
chill out and then they're good. And after a couple times, they don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
it's been years and years and years and years. since our kids have had any big emotional blowups.
Yeah, where they're acting out in that way.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with having big emotions, because they still have big
Right.
emotions, but they've become very good at articulating them. Even our like 8-year-old can say, I'm feeling like this because, and she just explains what she's feeling and why, so we can actually resolve it instead of there needing to be a meltdown.
And they
Or,
can have big emotions and still maintain proper behaviors.
yes. So, yeah. So in this, hybrid authoritative approach, we're we're integrating the empathy, the validation, the emotional presence of a parent, but we're also ensuring that we have the boundaries, we have the consequences, we're clear on communicating what those are so there's not or confusion. And then we're also dealing with our own, reflecting on our own traumas, our own wounds, trying to break some of those cycles that came from the past. Like that has to be integrated into the parenting as well, because, like you already brought up, we might be frustrated and annoyed and irritated. And really, it's because of something that happened when we were a kid. And our child's behavior is reminding us of it. And it really isn't about the child and their
Right?
behavior, it's about our own healing that needs to occur.
It can even happen. I've noticed something that completely unrelated to the kids that's going on for me, a frustration with work, a frustration with the government. Trying to do anything with any government on the planet is so inefficient and ineffective, and their bureaucracy. And so you might just be all worked up about bureaucracy, and your kids are like, Dad, can you help me with this? And you're like, rah! And it's like, no, it's not the kid.
Yeah.
It's whatever's going on. And so we have to resolve those things quickly and keep them
Well,
segmented.
yeah,
It's
in a
like
way,
my
it's
disdain for bureaucracy does not have to come out emotionally on my kids.
exactly. But I think the biggest benefit for taking this approach, the authoritative parenting approach, which is to me a hybrid approach, is that it becomes way more sustainable. Because we have seen in so many parents when they pick, and, whether it's the gentle parenting approach or whatever, they pick one parenting strategy and they just feel like they have to always do it that way. Like, this is the way I do it. This is the way I always do it. There's no flexibility.
With
They're
every kid.
rigid,
Yeah.
rigid, rigid, rigid. And that's the irony. You could be rigid in your gentle parenting because you're not willing to
Yeah.
adjust or change when necessary. And at least in my experience, it's that rigidity with whatever approach I've come up with that then begins to seed problems in my children, right? In the way they turn out, because I'm not willing to adjust myself and adjust my approach to the child, to the situation, whatever, using that developed intuition to be willing to do something totally different. Where if my intuition tells me, hey, this is how I would do it based on all of my parenting studying, but my intuition is telling me to do the opposite, I need to do the opposite, right? Because that could be the very thing that that kid needs in that moment. Now, of course, there's a lot, we've already talked about, there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of layers here.
Because that's the
But
right strategy with the
yeah,
right tool, with the right
right.
timing, the right tone.
Exactly. That's the parenting approach that works best. But it requires you to integrate everything we've talked about, right? And it requires you to integrate the intuition and to continually develop the intuition and to walk the labyrinth and then to know what the tools are that are available and then to understand your child and to know which tool to use in the moment.
Hence why we've created a masterclass and a weekly
Yes,
coaching
hence
program.
that. But the beauty of that is that there's actually a simplicity on the far side of that complexity. It sounds very complex, but when you learn how to do it, it actually becomes so much simpler. Like, it's actually way easier than what you're currently doing. And I know that from my own experience because I know what it was like to parent the way I used to parent versus now how I
It
parent,
was
which,
exhausting.
yeah, it's exhausting because it's inauthentic and you're trying to put a square peg into a round hole
With
type
that
thing.
rigidity. Too many parents, this is interesting. Like a lot of parents are just super soft and squishy. They're just the permissive, negligent parents, and they're getting taken advantage of. There's no boundaries. There's nothing there. There's no substance. And not that they're bad people, but it's
Mm.
just their parenting is ineffective. And then there's all these really good parents that we meet all the time. And these are really good people. They're ambitious people, driven, successful people. And somehow they've gotten this idea of like, I've got to be really rigid and really strict. And if I hold this rigidity, it'll work out.
My kids will turn out.
What happens is the kids get broken against that rigidity, those hard walls, and they fight for their freedom, and they often rebel, and they do these secretly living this separate life so the parents don't know about it because the parents are so strict and so rigid, and all of that, either extreme there, is just so exhausting and ineffective. So anyways, we'll wrap up there.
Well, yeah. So just to close into the takeaway, I think I want to emphasize, because even when I'm using the authoritative style, right, I'm using that wording, I want to emphasize that in many ways, the approach that works best is not a one size fits all approach, because children are not one size fits all, and no family is one size fits all. So while we're talking about this authoritative approach, to me, what it means is there's a lot of different things going on. Like, it's going to look different for every parent and every child and every situation. But the underlying core or principle lying here is this intuitive use of the right tools at
Yep.
the right time,
Yep.
right? So
That's
that's
literally
the
what I
core
just
of
wrote
it.
down. I was thinking, it's like, you have to learn how to only use what is necessary for the moment.
Yes, exactly. Which only comes from developing your intuition and your awareness of the tools available and how to use them properly, right? Now, of course, that is why, and what we do in our coaching and what we're teaching, um, because I'm not going to lie, it is simplicity on the far side of complexity. It does require you to learn a lot of things. I mean, just
Absolutely.
like that's why I love to compare this to a career. If you're going to be good at a career, anyone who knows this, anyone who has a career, knows there's a lot of things you have to learn and many things you have to master. And parenting is no different. There's a lot you do need to learn and there's a lot you need to master. Now, it's not impossible. It's totally doable, but it does require
Effort. Yeah.
and an investment of time.
As with anything.
As with anything, right?
It's worth it. So it's worth any effort and investment you put into this.
But ultimately, that approach, this kind of hybrid authoritative approach where it's not one size fits all, is what works best. It produces by far the best results. Not only are we, only saying this because of our own family, but people we've learned about, studied about, read about, people we've worked with. Like, when you use a customized approach to each child, that produces the best results, which of course includes the long-term, meaningful, deep relationships that you have with your children
Who
when they're
become
young
superb human beings.
when they become adults. Like that's to me is the best part that we're really just getting into now, is that we have these amazing adult children who are now friends that we continue to have relationships with.
It's so
I just love it.
The greatest joys in life. It's amazing. Yep.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Thanks for listening. Ask questions.
Ask questions. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone else, another parent, your spouse or friend.
Leave a review.
Mm-hmm.
Help us on this mission to help build extraordinary families all over the world for people who love their kids like we do and want to have an extraordinary family life like we do. And we wanted that so desperately because, well, I didn't have it growing up, and so I wanted it. And we put all of our life into this, and now we get to share it with others. And I mean, if you're listening, it's because you want that too.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's share it and live it and make it happen. So go love on your family this week.
And if you are ready to go deeper, then you can check out the Extraordinary Parent Mentoring Method at parenting.extraordinaryfamilylife.com.
Okay. Love you guys. Reach upward.